Hey guys, so we're starting our new unit on ecology. If you don't remember how to do so, we'll need to create a new unit in Notability. This is Unit 4, Ecology. You'll need to revisit the resources section down at the bottom of the Google Classroom that will walk you through step by step on how to create a new unit in your Notability folder. So without further ado, let's get this party started. So this is the 4.1 notes. So I need you to label the new note, not with the date, but with 4.1. So this will be our first section of the notes for this unit. So what is ecology? Ecology is the study of interactions among organisms and their physical environment. So basically looking at how the living and non-living things kind of interact with one another. The way that things interact kind of produce a web of interdependence. So basically how things depend on one another, between one another, and in which the environments they live. They also need to react to maybe changes in the environment because we live in this biosphere that is ever changing and dynamic. Sometimes ecologists, so those are the scientists who study ecology and how things and living things and non-living things interact, also study how specifically how humans influence the immediate environment and their global environment. So once again, ecology is the study of organisms and how they interact with their physical environment. And the scientists that are the ones who study this are known as ecologists. And sometimes they focus on how humans interact and have an effect or impact on the environment. When we look at how things are organized globally, we call this the biological levels of organization. So this is going to be going from macro to micro. So from the large scale of things to the most specific individual things. So we look at the thing called the biosphere. That's our entire planet with all of the organisms and the physical environment. So all the living and non-living things. Within our entire planet or biosphere, we have groups of ecosystems or biomes that share similar climates and typical organisms. So, biomes are going to be specific regions of the planet where there are generally the same type of climates, which is weather and precipitation, as well as what kinds of specific organisms are going to live there. So, the organisms that live in our biome are not going to be found in the biome where in South America, right? Then, if you drill down even further into that specific biome, you're going to have an ecosystem. And this is where all the organisms that live in a specific place together with their physical environment. So, this is more of a specific region within a biome. Now, within that ecosystem, you can go even further down into the community. And that's looking at all of the different types of combinations and populations that live together in a defined area. So, we're looking at only the living things. So you can see in the diagram to the right, the biome there, for example, is going through the central region of Canada. So that's our biome. That would actually be the coniferous forest. And then we can look at even further, the ecosystem might be in that specific region in somewhere in southern Canada, let's say, which we're going to have a very typical climate. So there's going to be a generalized way of describing the temperature and precipitation throughout the course of the year, as well as the living things that are there are generally going to be what really only lives in that region of the planet. And then going further into that, we're looking at the community. So this is all of the only the living things in that area. So you've got the moose, you've got some spruces and pine trees, you've got an owl, you have a gopher, you've got grasses and flowers. So all of those living things. Now we're not concerned with the non-living things. Then if you look at further at that community, if you drill down specifically to the population of the deer or the moose or the elk or whatever type of herbivore that is living there. So that would be just that one specific species that live in that same area. And then when you get down into the individual or that specific species, and that would be a group of similar organisms that can breed and produce fertile offspring. So you go from something very large, like from our entire planet, the biosphere, all the way down to a specific individual. Now, I mentioned how ecology is the interaction of living and non living things. We're going to give these a specific term. We're going to call these biotic and abiotic factors. So, a biotic factor are biological influences on organisms. So, basically, any living part of an environment which an organism might interact with. So, this could be animals, plants, fungi, mushrooms, bacteria, and algae. So the biotic factors are all the living things that are going to be in an area, where you have also then the abiotic factors. Remember, we talked about ecology as the living and non-living things interacting. So abiotic, remember the prefix a meaning not. So there's going to be the non-living environment parts that are found in a region. So like sunlight, heat, the type of precipitation, is it rain, is it sleet, is it snow, the level of humidity, so that's how much water vapor is in the air, wind, the different types of water currents, if you're looking at an aquatic area, the different types of soil that might be in an area and what kinds of plants can grow there, as well as temperature. So we're looking at right now focusing on the living and the non-living regions in an area. So this concludes our 4.1 notes. After this, hopefully you have a better understanding that ecology is a study of how things that are living and non-living depend on one another, as well as the different levels of organization, going from a biosphere to a biome to an ecosystem to a community to a population and then to an individual. And then finally, the difference between the biotic and abiotic factors.